everybody? Good, you're muted, I'm not, but everybody, in case you're new to this technology, if you hover with your mouse down in the lower part, there's this little thing called reactions. And if you touch on reactions, you can give a clap or you can give a thumbs up anytime you want during this program. So I am delighted to see people here. It's not raining. It's not raining. Is it a Rose Gala? Yes, it is. It is a Rose Gala. And I see some laughing because we have traditionally had rain a lot of different nights on our Rose Gala. I see some shaking heads. So I know people are agreeing, including our rain goddess, Patty. I'm very happy to welcome all of you to the Rose Gala 2020. I'm Susan Lessert, Executive Director, and I see different friends. I see our honorees. I see their friends. I see Rosarians. I see former board chairs. I see current board chair, and it's really just wonderful. Who would have thought that a tiny virus would create a pandemic? It's the power of nature. It's not the kind of power of nature that we like to think about, but it is nonetheless the power of nature. And in life, there's this phrase, never waste a crisis. And that's what we've done. We got together in March. I saw Stephanie on the screen here. And we talked about what do we do. We talked about it with our Rose Gala committee, our board members. We said, what do we do? Do we keep it? Do we move it to the fall? What do we do? And we decided we would ask our honorees. So we called up Pat Shanley, who is smiling. We called up the Morals, who I think are also smiling. Yes, there they are. And Fred Gerber is here somewhere. And they all said, let's do it. Let's have the Rose Gala. Let's do it virtual. So I happen to have with me a bouquet of flowers, native roses, for me to have the scent. And I hope that you will too. I see Will Radler's on here somewhere and Louis Arce. Lots of great rosarians. Neil has a rose. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you because it's really belief in people and belief in place and belief in the positive things that we all do in the community that something like Queens Botanical Garden and so much else can go on in this time of pandemic and social strife and stress. So I would like to introduce you to our board chair. And I would say that when he became the board chair, you know, you never know what you're going to get when you become the board chair. And what he stepped into was a pandemic. I give it to Mr. Neil Fleischman.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, you're right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Neil Fleischman, proud to be the board chair here at Queens Botanical Garden. Susan's right. I agreed to be board chair back in, I guess, November, and never thought that we'd be dealing with what we are, but here we are today. For the past 6 years, I've cherished my time as a board member here at QBG, but I've always been most excited for our Rose Gala, as it creates a wonderful backdrop that showcases our beautiful garden. This year, it's different, but it's still a special night to enjoy the garden, thanks to the staff here at QBG who put this together, and all of you, our wonderful guests here tonight. These are tough times, but the spirit of New Yorkers, especially in Queens, is shining brightly tonight. We will come out of this stronger, safer, and hopefully more compassionate towards each other. And the garden will continue to be an oasis for our entire community to enjoy for a long time. So sit back and welcome to Rose Gala at Home 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Let's give Neil a clap. Go to the bottom where it says reactions and clap. Woo! Thank you all. Thank you all. Yeah, I see different current board members, former board members, friends. It's wonderful. And we have, I see some people having their special cocktail, which is very nice. We have special friends that are right up the street from us, the New York Presbyterian Queens. And we have had a long-standing relationship with them. We've done so many things over the years, like go into the hospital work with patients, have patients down to the garden. And most recently, what we did is, with the pandemic, is we offered them our entire parking garden. They have staff who come, who can't go home to their loved ones because of the possibility of infection. And this hospital is putting them up in hotels and feeding them, and they needed a place for their cars. And we said, use our parking garden. And so they then said, we would love to be your lavender rose sponsor of the Rose Gala. And I was like, wow, such a surprise. So we have a special presentation, a special musical performance tonight of Lean on Me, and it's to thank our friends at New York Presbyterian for being our lead sponsor. We dedicate this performance in tribute to them and all the essential workers and during this pandemic, and in support of equality and justice for all people. So our very own Dylan, who's the man behind the technology, is going to put this performance on. I think that deserves some clapping. I always love to see the hands, and I love music, I love piano, so thank you so much to Nick Fanara for that performance. And now we are going back to Neil, who's going to thank our sponsors.
Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I'm having a quick technical difficulty here. Here we go. Yeah, we're very fortunate to have amazing sponsors for this evening, starting with, as Susan already talked about, New York Presbyterian, who's our lead sponsor, our Lavender Rose sponsor, so thank you so much. Our Yellow Rose sponsors are the Max and Selma Kupferberg Family Foundation, the Kupferberg Foundation, and Saul and Gail Kupferberg. And lastly, Andrea Woodner. Thank you. Our Red Rose sponsors are Consolidated Edison, or Con Edison of New York, as we know them, Dime Community Bank, and our honoree, Pat Shanley. Our Pink Rose sponsors are Cord Meyer Development and Main Street Radiology. Our White Rose sponsors are Flushing Bank, Raymond Jason, New York Community Bank Foundation, and Resorts World Casino New York. And lastly, our Coral Rose sponsors are Broadway Stages, Cartwheel, copsplus.com, Neil Fleischman, I think that's me, Joyce and Ed Morrow, Martha Taylor, and Veronica Sang. But I'd also like to give a special thanks to all of the individual donors who really helped to help support us and make this night a wonderful night. So your support and generosity is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. And another trick for technology is that at the bottom, if at the top, if you slide over the picture, you can get either one face showing or multiple faces, and you have to fiddle around a little. It makes you nervous, I realize, but that's a way to see other people. So what we have is we closed the garden gates on March 19th to the public, along with many institutions, not just in New York, but around the country and around the world. And the staff have mostly been working from home since then. We have had essential staff there to water the plants, to make sure the building facilities are working, to put the farm in, to put the crops in for the farm. But there's been a lot of creativity on the part of the staff as they've jumped in to try to and succeed at virtual technology so that we can help support teachers and parents in their homes and give something to the community. We've been sending out pictures and little video clips and exercises of what people can do. So right now we're going to go back to Dylan, the technology maestro, to show us some of what the staff has been up to.
Hi everyone, this is Gennady.
Hi, I'm Dylan.
I'm Jasmine.
I'm Erin.
I'm Anne, and I have here today
Alana.
I'm Cassandra.
My name is Rebecca.
And my name is Miles.
Juke here.
It has this amazing drooping canopy. Let's take a look at that. The eggs are hatching.
And they typically like these tall kind of grass. These are irises.
Now, why do you think a bird might build a nest?
Their wings have a tiny little tail.
And you can create a whole bouquet.
And that is actually a cardinal feather, right?
Hey Blooms, we did that.
Try to work around a circle.
Stay tuned to QBG at Home for more crafts, stories, plant tutorials, and other ideas for things to do with your family while you're at home during this time. We hope to see you in the garden again soon.
We hope you enjoyed.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Isn't that fun? It's a lot of fun, and the staff have had a lot of fun and challenges. Yes, yes. Applause, 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 applause. Is Phil Ballman, who represents the Queensborough president, I see his face on the screen. Is the borough president here at the moment?
I'm not sure. She should be here any moment. I hope so.
Okay. Well, I will, it's 6:14, and so when she arrives, if you could just give a little wave, I'll be looking, then we can put her on. And I think what we will do next is proceed with the Rose Gala Award. Pat Shanley is our honoree this year for the Rose Gala Award. And Pat is a woman with a mission. She believes in the rose, the beauty of the rose, and she will tell you a little bit about herself and her path. But she felt some years ago that to have the rose be successful in America, that you needed to build community. So she sought out the leaders of gardens in New York area. She brought in rosarians, and again, I saw Will Radler, Louis Arce, and other people, the Gibsons are here. She brought together people from industry to talk about how to have the rose trials, and rose breeding be the strongest it could. Pat also, it's just like a page out of the garden book, because we believe in sustainability. We believe in Mother Nature. We believe in the environment. And we have not used pesticides at Queens Botanical Garden for, I think, 20 years now. And at one point, when I was in school, the idea of growing roses without spraying it didn't exist. It was like, no, if you're gonna have good roses, you have to spray. So Pat, with others, compiled a book about the sustainable rose garden, and she will tell you about that. Pat is a pleasure. She joined our board some years ago, and we are just like kindred spirits in people and plants and community. And so I am very happy that we are honoring her tonight. And we will see a short clip about Pat, and then we will ask her to say a few words as we present the award virtually. So Dylan, again, to the clip.
Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. I was introduced into the world of roses in the early 1990s. One Sunday afternoon, I went to a rose show at Planting Fields Arboretum in Oyster Bay, Long Island. The room was full of gorgeous roses, all grown by amateurs and entered into this competition. It was so beautiful, and I was hooked. I wanted these beautiful flowers in my own garden. The group that held the show was the Long Island Rose Society, and they were a welcoming bunch, and so I joined. I soon learned that these beautiful roses that I saw that Sunday afternoon were mostly hybrid teas and very prone to disease, and that I would need to spray them with fungicides for them to keep their leaves and produce the gorgeous blooms that I saw that afternoon. And I soon learned that spraying roses was the least favorite part of my hobby. For years, I was torn between wanting to grow roses and not wanting to spray them, and I wished for it to be easier and safer. Then came Will Radler's Knockout Rose, and a whole new era of sustainability in growing roses was born. Ushered in with an awareness that our environment needed to be protected for us and for future generations. In the years that followed, rose hybridizers rose to the challenge and created many beautiful roses that can now be grown successfully without pesticides. Helping people to grow these easy care, disease-resistant roses became my passion. I believed then, and I believe now, that this is the secret to growing the membership of the American Rose Society and our local societies. And it was the driving force that led me to the ARS presidency. Along the way, I met many wonderful like-minded people, and one of them was our very own Susan Lacerte, who encouraged me to join the Queens Botanical Garden Board of Trustees, which I did. And that opened up a whole new world of possibilities for future projects that would benefit the rose and the garden. My years on the QBG board helped to forge an alliance with the garden, Manhattan Rose Society, the American Rose Society, and the rose industry. And that alliance is still strong today. As you are no doubt aware, not-for-profit organizations such as the American Rose Society and Queens Botanical Garden depend heavily on fundraising and membership. So how do we grow these organizations and encourage people to join us? Queens Botanical Garden is an oasis in an urban area providing peace, solace, and education, while leading the way for preserving and protecting our environment. Now in this time of the pandemic and social distancing, botanical gardens are even more important, and we need to help them continue their service to the public by supporting their mission. No organization exists in isolation. We are all part of a wonderful international botanical concept, and that concept includes all interests in the rose societies, the rose industry, as well as the botanical gardens, the garden writers, the hybridizers, all those who work to save the old roses and create new roses for the future. Whenever we establish a bond, an association, a friendship with one of these entities, it strengthens our common goal. Working together will help us to grow our respective organizations. And through that growth, we will leave a heritage to our children and our grandchildren that will be even richer than the one that was left to us, because we will preserve and pass that heritage on to future generations. It is my hope that we will continue to find ways to work together in the future to promote the alliance between the Rose and Queens Botanical Garden. I thank you for honoring my work with the Rose Gala Award. It means more than I can say.
I think that deserves a lot of applause. I think that was fabulous, really, really fabulous. And you can see why we just fell in love with Pat. So Pat, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would, Susan. Thank you. And many heartfelt thanks to Queens Botanical Garden for this award and for your recognition of my life's work. As I accept this award and feel the joy, I also feel the need to acknowledge that this is a time of sorrow for many in our country. The rose is a symbol of many things, and not the least of which is peace, hope, and healing. In the darkest times of my own life, the rose gave me a lifeline to hold on to and move forward to a brighter day, and my work has been a way of paying that blessing forward. If ever there was a time that this world needs peace, hope, and healing, it's now. And I pray that we will find it. So thank you again. It has been an honor and a privilege to work with you and Queens Botanical Garden, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you again, Pat. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And we do have our Rose Gala Award. We tried to get a picture of it. It's all glass and it was reflecting so much that it really didn't film well. So we will be sending your award to you, Pat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you to the board and thank you to Queens.
Yes. And now I understand that the borough president is joined us. And so I know Dylan is looking for her. Sharon Lee came to Queens some time ago and has worked in different positions. She has taken on the borough presidency with gusto and in a very challenging time. She really cares about people. She is so smart and intuitive. And when we had budget testimony recently, I noticed that every single person who spoke, and the budget testimony goes on for hours, every single person, she had something thoughtful, meaningful, and kind to say. So I'm not sure that I see her right yet, but I think when she starts speaking, oh, there she is. She's in the car. There you are, Sharon Lee.
You'll forgive me. I think I'm late, so you would think that with Zoom we could be on time. But thank you so much, Susan, for a very gracious introduction. Good evening, everyone. Again, you'll forgive me. I am jumping on and joining you briefly on the road. We've been nonstop throughout Queens. There are a lot of protest gatherings, demonstrations, rightful protests and demonstrations. And so I've been trying to join and keep an eye on as many as possible to make sure that we do it right here in Queens. We've been able to, I'm proud to say that in Queens, we are not like Brooklyn, we are not like Manhattan. And while we hope that the situation in those boroughs do stabilize, we've been very fortunate to not even have to de-escalate. We've been able to manage to prevent escalation, but while protecting and joining and augmenting the cries for justice in a nonviolent, dignified, and yet very purposeful and impactful way. But in any case, I'm delighted to join the gala here, a very creative one. I see a lot of familiar faces. I see Assemblymember Neely Rosick, my Assembly member. I'm one of her constituents. I see Maple Law. I see, wow, this is a lot of familiar faces. But I just want to say hello and thank you. These are certainly unprecedented times. I would be remiss if I did not remind everyone here at the gala, if you haven't already, please remember to fill out your census. We are fighting for every single person to be counted. My2020census.gov, my2020census.gov. I see that most folks are home well before the curfew. And so if you're looking for something to do, it takes no more than 10 minutes. It is absolutely critical for our future, especially on this road to recovery and rebuild that is right up ahead. And then secondly, if you haven't already, a friendly reminder, but also an urgent reminder, we have an election coming up in several weeks. And I am urging everyone to apply, if you haven't already, for your absentee ballot. I can freely talk about it because my name is not on the ballot, and that's how important it is. nycabsentee.com. If you apply for your absentee ballot and you end up not using it, you end up, let's say in a few weeks, you go, if you're like me, I'm a traditionalist, I like to go to the poll on election day and vote. It's such a cherished right and precious right. But one thing that we've been reminded of over the course of this pandemic has been that tomorrow is never guaranteed. And so hopefully we will continue flatlining the curve. We have successfully bent the curve, but we still have to be very diligent about it. And so almost as an insurance, I urge you to, if you haven't already, apply for your absentee ballot. It can't hurt. And then you have options when it comes time to vote. But again, with the pandemic, the pandemic itself, the virus itself does not discriminate. It does not discriminate. And discrimination is something that we are very sensitive to here in the borough of Families. We are the most diverse borough. We are the most diverse county in the continental United States. And the Botanical Garden is one of our gems here in the borough of Queens. But the pandemic has exposed a lot of the disparities and a lot of the underlying conditions that were exacerbated and exposed and amplified by the pandemic. And so for folks who are tuning in, I understand that this is to support the Queens Botanical Garden. I urge you that, as someone who has some discretionary funding of our tax dollars, I know that every single public dollar is a strong and direct investment into our futures, of which the Queens Botanical Garden is an integral part. The pandemic has really brought us down to some of our basics, right? What family's about, what's really important, about wellness. And the Botanical Garden has been instrumental in wellness and environment and sustainability and all those things that breathe more life into more colors into our lives and into our families. And so thank you for your support to the Botanical Garden. Again, it is an institution unlike any other in the borough of Queens. And I am happy to be here and support and laud you for your investment. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you, Sharon. And you mentioned voting, and Queens Botanical Garden is a voting place. So we will be open for people who want to vote. And I've been using that as a way to say, well, we're a living museum, and like the zoos and others are places where people can get out of the house. They really need to be able to get out of the house. And so, Mr. Governor and Mr. Mayor, can't we open? Our staff is really doing a fabulous job, led by Rebecca Wolf, who's here, and you'll hear from her in a minute, and Cassandra Schaffa, and others, to really get ready so that we are safe. We are eager to let people back in. And I want to thank you for your comments and for tuning in on this occasion. The borough president usually does attend the gala, so thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we're going to go to another elected official who also is interested in everything. I mean, she's interested in composting, she's interested in women, she's interested in children, she's interested in bike riding, she's interested in justice. And she shows up a lot at the garden. She is a true friend. I give you Assembly Member Neely Rosick. And Neely, are you there? I think you have to speak, or maybe Dylan has to unmute you.
I think I'm unmuted. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? So it's my pleasure to be with you tonight. And Pat, you should see I'm wearing a rose shirt in your honor. But I just wanted to hop on real quick alongside our great borough president, Sharon Lee, to just say thank you to Susan and your entire incredible team for putting not just this gala together in trying times, but consistently being an oasis for our community. It's such a special place, and it's one of my favorite places in Queens. So I hope that we all get to celebrate again together next year. In the meantime, I do want to send my warmest wishes to Pat, to Joyce and Edward, and to Fred Gerber, who's getting the Environmental Educator Award tonight. You are all incredible, doing amazing things for our community in the garden, and supporting all of your work is honestly easy. It's easy for people like myself to invest in a place that gives back so much to so many. And I do want to give, I would be remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to people on your team, Susan, because among my many quarantine hobbies that I've taken up during these couple of months, I've started a compost thanks to the Queens Botanical Garden, right in the heart of Fresh Meadows. It's not something I ever thought I would take on, but everyone in my community garden seems to love it so far. And again, it's just a testament to the garden being such a community resource that we can turn to and we can educate ourselves. So I want to say thank you. And again, I hope to see you all very soon in the garden. I hope to visit there soon and be with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Neely. Neely Rosick, Assembly Member. Let's give her some applause as well, because she really shows up a lot. She's advocating all the time, and she helps in many, many ways. So thank you. Next, we're going to go to Rebecca Wolf. Now, you can't be here to smell the roses at the garden, but we had a suggestion from two people who were also on, Perry and Tiffany, that maybe we interact with people in some ways. So we have Rebecca Wolf who's going to show how we are interacting with people this evening. Rebecca is the Assistant Director. Rebecca, it's up to you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We just wanted to do a quick virtual rose garden. So we were hoping those of you that have a rose or a picture of a rose or a rose in your hair, if you could hold it up for us just for a few seconds. We're going to try to take some pictures for our virtual rose garden. And
oh, people have dresses on?
I love it.
For Berg, you are too much. Yeah. And Neely has her pin. People have different things. A lot of roses being shown. That's really fabulous. Oh, Mingder, you were holding up your phone. John Sue, I see you there with roses right nearby. Karen has a rose. Eva, Melissa, holding a nice picture. Jean Waring, oh, Jean Waring, you're there. What are you holding up? Oh, and Tiffany, Jan Schneider, roses probably from your garden, and right, Jan, from your garden, I bet. Sophia grew them, and Fred Gerber. Susan Zigman with a nice red rose. Fabulous. Fabulous.
Anne, are we okay? Okay, thank you, everybody.
And I will point out that Martha Taylor, who's here today, she is the daughter of one of the founders of Queens Botanical Garden. And she got married in rose season because they believe in roses so much. So thank you, Martha. I see you with your nice kind of whitish yellowish rose. So, okay, Next, we go back to Neil, and Neil will tell you some great stories about how we met Ed and Joyce Morrill.
Thanks, Susan. So I am honored to introduce the recipients of this year's Community Leadership Award, Joyce and Ed Morrill. I've had the pleasure of knowing them for the past 10 years. Our paths first crossed while collaborating on a project for the Queens Historical Society. And I was quickly struck by their artistic ability and their passion for their work. But it was also quite evident how truly they cared about the mission they were serving. Their spirit is what brought me to QBG a few years later, and I guess the rest is history for me. But I got to experience their love and devotion to the garden firsthand. They're both longtime members of Queens Botanical Garden. They're founding members and guest curators of our Art Gallery Committee, and they're currently serving on the Advisory Council. So please join me in watching this video presentation by Joyce and Ed.
Ed's and my involvement with the garden goes way back to 2008. We were thinking about a venue for the proposed Jamaica Estates Association art show, and Martha Taylor suggested that we should come to the Queens Botanical Garden, where there was a beautiful but underutilized gallery space. We fell in love with the garden. We fell in love with Susan. We became volunteers. I think we were called ambassadors at that time. We found that there was an aspiration to develop the gallery space into a professional gallery. And we had the background, the passion, and the experience to help with that. So we became founders, guest curators, and exhibitors ourselves.
So we're very pleased that over these 12 years, the gallery has flourished. The many artists that have been represented in these shows show an amazing range in cultural and creative diversity. And over the years, the artists have generally donated a piece of work from their exhibit to the permanent collection of the Queens Botanical Garden. The most recent show has been one with the pieces from the permanent collection, just like MoMA.
So over these years, with 4 shows a year, that's a lot of shows. But what we want to highlight today are shows that illustrate how art in the garden promotes collaboration and community involvement. I'll start by speaking about Ed's and my show, Infinite India, an Excess of Reality. This is our large-scale body of work from our trip with National Geographic to northern India, Rajasthan, in 2005. And we were fortunate to be able to exhibit in 5 different venues, including the United Nations. But when we presented it at the Queens Botanical Garden, it was co-sponsored by the Hindu Temple Society of North America. We were amazed and gratified at the excitement that it generated in that community and subsequent collaboration between these 2 organizations. To bring the gallery to a professional level, we needed professional lighting. WAC Lighting Company generously donated the lights. Martha Taylor provided the funding for installation. The lights were installed just in time for the History of Queens Botanical Garden exhibition.
QBG began at the 1939 World's Fair site and was called Gardens on Parade. This exhibit celebrated its birth, growth, and development over the years. It was a collaborative project. Seemed like a cast of thousands contributed to this project. The concept and the text were developed by the Queens Botanical Garden staff. But this was a profound labor of love from Ed and Joyce, who donated over 300 hours preparing and producing the digital files. The long gallery wall is the visual history of Queens Botanical Garden from 1939 to the present day. And Neil Fleischman printed the 15 30 by 40 color panels and then came on board as a QBG volunteer. Now look.
I'm a longtime member of Professional Women Photographers. And they proposed an ambitious exhibition for us at Queens Botanical Garden. Over 50 artists were represented with 140 images printed on metal which shimmered on our walls. That organization has more than 250 members, and many of them were introduced to the garden for the first time. It's been rewarding creatively and a real joy to work with the exhibition committee as it's evolved to its current very professional status. They continue to bring very current, very relevant, environmentally themed work to the garden. Dylan House heads the committee, which includes Dina Matzner, Gennady Gurman, and we also want to say thanks to Regina Minerva for all her many years of working with the community.
We continue to be involved. We're on the advisory council, and our own personal work is often inspired by our love of the garden. For instance, my tulip panorama and Joyce's afternoon in the park. So we're very grateful. We accept this honor with gratitude. And we're grateful for Susan Lassert's impeccable leadership and to all our friends at the Queens Botanical Garden. Thank you.
Thanks. That was great, and I think it helps everybody see what amazing supporters that they have been to and for us. So without further ado, I present you our Community Leadership Award winners, Joyce and Ed Morrow. Please say a few words. Are they muted?
We'll unmute ourselves.
There we go.
He's wearing the same outfit. They're wearing the same outfit.
So again, I want to say thank you very much. We're deeply honored to receive this Community Leadership Award. And thanks to Susan, again, for her leadership. And Neil, see what we did when we reintroduced you. And to all our friends at the garden. It's a pleasure working there. We appreciate the mission. We support the mission. We really did fall in love with the place and with the people. And that was a long time ago. And our interest and appreciation of the garden doesn't waver. So we thank you so very much. I do want to say that I think at this particular time, we're receiving a Community Leadership Award, but our true leaders these days, I think, are essential workers. And at a time like this, I think we need to, again, reflect upon what they have done for us and how much we appreciate all of their sacrifices. But again, thank you to everybody. Great seeing you all very much.
We look forward to our continuing and ever-blossoming relationship with Queens Botanical Garden. Give hello to all our friends. Soon we will be able to walk in the garden together.
Yes. Oh, so poetic, so absolutely poetic. And the garden really grew out of community involvement. We were exhibit at the 1939 World's Fair, and people in Queens wanted Queens to have a botanical garden, so they took care of the garden. And when we created this new building, we put in an exhibit wall partly because the community said they wanted it. And then it's like, oh, how do we do this? And it just happened that Ed and Joyce showed up at the exact right moment. And looking at the exhibits, the first one on India, the history of the garden, it just brings back so many memories. So thank you all so much. And with that, we are going to a tour of the Rose Garden with our gardener, Colin Kirk.
Hi, I'm Colin Kirk, and you're at Queens Botanical Garden, specifically in the Rose Garden. We practice organic and sustainable rose gardening, which can be quite difficult, but this rose garden was started between 12 and 15 years ago. We probably have between 60 and 75 plants within the rose garden in varying colors, between the red you see here and the pink magenta to our back. as well as white, yellow, orange, and peach. We have a very unique rose garden here in that we only practice sustainable gardening. We don't spray or use any types of pesticides or herbicides while managing the roses. We do apply an organic fertilizer once a year. After their first bloom, we deadhead to encourage another bloom. And then we just continue to weed by hand underneath the roses throughout the season. The blooms all depend on how mild of a winter we had. We're actually 2 to 3 weeks earlier than we were last year. And as you'll see here today, which is May 26th, we're really starting to see them finally blossom. Usually we'll see a second bloom in July or August. We'll keep deadheading them. And last year I saw rose blossoms all the way to Thanksgiving. I'd like to introduce you to some of our roses. Right here is a McGrady medium red climbing rose. This was developed, or bred rather, back in the 70s. It's one of the few true red roses we have in our garden. Most of our roses tend to be softer pastels, whites, and cream color. This rose is great. It's a very good performer. If you continue to deadhead it, this rose will continue to bloom into the fall. People really love this one. It's very classic. When we talk about sustainable rose practices, we have a higher tolerance for imperfection than one would have in kind of chemically controlled rose gardening. So right in here, you're witnessing black leaf spot, which is a disease. And typically, if you were cutting these flowers for bouquets, you couldn't sell anything with this black spot. But here at the garden, we're just favoring the rose itself. And, you know, otherwise, this rose is very healthy. Here you're looking at a home run rose, which is a descendant of the knockout roses, a very popular and classic rose. It's a shrub rose, which does very well in New York's climate, as you can tell by the numerous blossoms and the size of it. This rose is a good example of kind of the struggles we faced this year with COVID-19. I wasn't able to prune it as much as I'd like in the winter because it was only me tending to this garden. So we have a very big, massive knockout rose, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. This is one of our white Floribunda roses. It was the first to bloom in the garden this year. It has a nice fragrance and 5 to 7 blooms on each stem. We have a cascading kind of color wheel in our roses, and by design, it goes from white over to yellows and creams to magenta and red over to our purples and violets, and then back over to our oranges. It's a very nice design. All roses are on, or at least when they were installed, about 12-foot raised beds in ground. And over time, those beds have kind of sunk. And so one of our projects in the coming years is to re-raise these beds and remove these roses when they're dormant in the winter. This is a Rosanna. It's a climbing rose developed by Cords, which is a German company that typically specializes in Floribundas. Cords as a breeder does very well in the New York climate. We have the same summers and winters. If you think about how we produce a lot of Rieslings out in Long Island, which is a wine varietal that developed a lot in Germany, then you can kind of think about how their roses would do very well here. Nice fragrance, huge blooms, single bloom, great cut flower. This isn't even in its peak bloom. If you look hard enough, you can see a bunch of buds. This is definitely a showstopper at the garden, mostly because people can walk right below it and have roses over their heads.
Yay! Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I love the music. I love the music. So we will be able to welcome you back to the Rose Garden soon, we hope. Next up, the garden is really known for education. That's one of our key aspects, is to share, and Patty's smiling, is to share the love of plants and nature with people. And the honoree really helped get that going years ago, and there have been different people that have followed in his footsteps. So next up is one of the people that have followed in his footsteps. Rebecca Wolf is going to present to Fred Gerber. Rebecca.
Thank you. So there are so many things to say about Fred. I wrote a few down just because I knew that if I didn't write it down, I would just be talking here for the next 30 minutes. It's hard to find somebody as inspiring, interesting, smart, and kind as Fred. As the current director of education, I have looked up to Fred since my first day at the garden 13 years ago, learning about plants, sustainable practices, best practices in working with interns, with seniors, and of course, hearing the joy in him cracking jokes in the office. Though he holds a master's in botany and knows more about plants and the natural world than anyone I know, he is one of the most humble people I have ever met. We often receive requests from groups for programs with that teacher with the amazing teacher voice. And though Fred is very honored by it, he always graciously offers the spot to his fellow colleagues. He is a walking encyclopedia, imparting knowledge on thousands of students of all ages, but also on our own QBG staff who have learned so much from Fred over time. As Mr. Rogers always says, look for the helpers, and Fred is one of those helpers. From setting up our morning classes to supporting instructors in all of their work, to working with dozens and dozens of interns with our department each year, often giving advice and listening to their needs, putting his own needs aside. This is all exemplary of the person that Fred is. And with that, I want to thank you for 50 years of service to Queens Botanical Garden. And we look forward to so many more years of working with you, Fred.
Hi, I'm Fred Gerber, and I'm presently Director of Education Emeritus. I retired, but I'm still active at the garden. I started back there way back in fall of 1970. It's been 50 years that I've been there, and it was always like going to a new job. It was always something new. When you walked into the gate in the morning, you never really knew exactly what the day was going to be. Anything from working with senior citizens to handicapped children to nursery school to answering plant questions. So the interesting part of the job changing and growing very much like a plant is what kept me around all these years. And this is the greatest thing about the job, that I enjoy working with a variety of people in a variety of ways. One of the things that I always like about children and other people in the garden is you're learning things, but we never lost track of that sense of fun, the sense of the fun of discovery, coming in, seeing a worm. Will it hurt me? Oh, no, it won't hurt you. Here, I'll pick it up and I'll show it to you. And their eyes are wide like they're seeing a white tiger. So it's this sense of wonder and being able to be, in a way, a child myself and share that enthusiasm with them, involving the children in different ways physically. We do a lot with bees because bees are so important in the garden. And I started doing the bee dance, and I'll get a whole group of children up there shaking and doing the turns that the bees really do in communicating with each other. So it's sharing it, but having fun doing it. And you never know where you're going to go. We had a program where I was working at New York Hospital in Queens. We had to alter what we do because you can't bring soil into the hospital. I did some programs on plants and animals together, and I would use my puppets. And I would see the look in their eyes. You have a little child who's confined to bed and maybe dealing with some serious things, and seeing the squirrel puppet being able to reach out and pet it, and the look in their face. So you're constantly being rewarded in that way. I now work with these older boys and girls going up and through their teens up to 21 in a program for multiply challenged students. And when they work with me and they consider me part of their team and they start thinking of the garden as their place, it's very rewarding. And some of them have gone on in jobs. Some of them have even worked at the botanical garden. This is the kind of thing that's constantly giving back to me, working with these people of many ages, that makes me happy. As far as plants that I like at the garden, the front of the garden, there's a little tree. It's a weeping scholar tree. It's not the prettiest tree in the garden or the most impressive, but it gets its name because in Asia, they believe this tree brought good luck to people who were learning, and they plant it around schools and libraries. And I have the children on tour reach out and touch it. And I say, well, it's like a four-leaf clover. When we say it brings you luck, we know that's just a nice story. But maybe this will bring you luck with school. But way back, before we made it our mission to see how plants, people, and cultures meet, we were doing this. And we saw this common ground. And I think back and I think, how many hundreds, maybe even thousands of children have touched that tree? Let's hope they've been turned on to the importance of nature. You never know what happens. There are ripples still going out, and it's nice to be part of the garden, making those ripples, and once in a while they come back to you. And that's really what's made the 50 years worthwhile. It's been great seeing growth and change and still being a part of it. I'm really glad to be there. I hope also that all of you will just be aware of the plants and nature around you at a time when so many things are being endangered, when so many things are being damaged. I hope we don't lose some of these wonderful things that are part of our world. And you can help in many little ways by joining places like the garden, by planting in your yard plants that are beneficial for good insects like bees and butterflies, and get out there and see some of these things out in the wild. It's important for people to realize that we're just a small part of this whole world, but we do have to take care of it. And I'll be seeing you around the botanical garden.
Yes, I think that deserves a lot of applause as well. It's just always so moving. Fred is always so moving. He can inspire people who are PhD students as well as the little toddlers. So thank you so much. And I would like to just acknowledge a couple of Rose Gala honorees that are also in our midst. We have Tai Wang, who's there somewhere. Tai, you can wave. We have Saul and Gail Kupferberg, and Gail has a fabulous dress. And they always bring a lot of the family, and we are delighted that they are here today. We would like to acknowledge our former board chair, Pauline Huang. Pauline, where are you? She brought us roses. There she is. And our another former board chair, Rovina Sherling, and Rovina and Saul are chairing our capital campaign committee. But Rovina has been, in true style of Rovina, she's been doing a challenge to everybody to donate now, right? She says, if you donate something, we will, $50 will match every gift. I think I got that right. I just saw that on my text. So unexpected surprise. But it really takes a team to do this. And on our board level, we have a number of board members with us today. But in addition, Edie Meyer, Edie, would you wave your hand or say a little something so that people will know where you are? Edie Meyer is from the Meyer family. Her brother was on the board, her father, her grandfather, I think her great-grandfather. And she did a lot to reach out to people. And I can just picture her father at our Rose Gala in the past. And if you wanted to know where George Meyer was, he was inside buying chances for the raffle. And there's a lot of Pat's friends here today, John, Clayton, Wayne, people that I have already mentioned, Mabel Law, our friend from the community. And really, it takes a strong staff team to do this as well. So I would like Annette Fanara to wave your hand, please. And Dylan, if you can somehow get her or unmute her or something so that people can see, because she was the one that said yes, and she has been the key person behind this gala. So can we have some claps for Annette? I myself can't see her at this moment. There she is. Annette, Al, please.
Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your support. Our honorees, you are fabulous, and we so appreciate all the work that you have done in your fields, in bringing those fields to the garden, and for connecting us with so many other people. And I thank all of you who have come to our little virtual gala. This was such a surprise that we had to plan this, but you've all stepped up and we appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And then Ann Tan Dutchkoff, where are you, Ann? Wave your hand or somehow make yourself known. She is our marketing manager, and a lot of the work came through her. And then Dylan House, who has been diligently managing all the technology. We have Erin Hutsey Thomas, who's a wonderful photographer and has been helping with reaching out. I see you waving, Erin. And then Eva Carrillo, who is looking so elegant and beautiful tonight, and she is there somewhere. So I just spilled my wine. Oh, well, there's still a little left. But anyway, I lost my bearing for a moment. Neil, and we want to thank the pianist Nick Fanara as well. So Neil, have I forgotten anything? Rebecca or Annette, have I forgotten anything?
Just maybe if Fred wanted to say anything yet.
Oh, right. Fred, come on in, Fred. Where are you? You have to yeah, there you go.
There you are.
Okay, I'm going to make this fast. I know you're running a little over, but yesterday I celebrated my 75th birthday, and I can't think of a better way to commemorate my birthday than receiving this wonderful award. I want to thank our director, Susan, and the board, the members, the volunteers, and the staff of Queens Botanical Garden, especially the education staff with Rebecca Wolf and Gennady Gurman. It's been 50 wonderful years of meeting interesting people of all ages from all walks of life, and it's going to keep going on. Next week, we're starting an online highlighting plant of the week. Emmett, one of our instructors, and myself will be doing a different plant each week, talking about growing it and highlights about its history. So we keep being the place where people, plants, and cultures meet, and I hope to be part of that for a number of years. Thank you to all of you.
Great. And so it is the moment. Neil and I would like to ask all of you to lift a glass, to cheer. our wonderful honorees, Pat Shanley, who loves roses, loves people, and has done so much to promote the culture of the rose in a sustainable fashion. Ed and Joyce Morrill, so elegant, beautiful, bring beauty to Queens, everything they do. And Fred Gerber, who is an inspiration to all for many decades. Let us all have a toast to all of us, to all of you, and to Queens Botanical Garden, the place where people, plants, and cultures meet.